everyone. So you are listening to the first podcast of .NET User Group Mauritius, in short NUGM, a podcast that shows insights on what it takes to carve your path to a great career in IT. The IT sector has proved to be or to have positively survived the pandemic. And this year, we see a high demand of IT skills in the Mauritian market. There is not only a war for talent, but also a large skills gap between the market demand and the actual supply. In this episode, we are going to discuss young graduates' parcours to the market and why it's important for universities and business to align to build a strong future for aspiring IT professionals. Joining me today is a very famous lecturer at the University of Technology Mauritius, Mr. Ravi Fogua, DevOps engineer Salman Naga, software engineers who recently kickstarted their career in IT, Olit Rehan and Puvanen Sinan. I'm your host for the session, Preeti Debya. Now let's dive in. So I'm going to kick things off with a background question for you, Ravi. Is there a working relationship with universities and the business stakeholders? And so, are there any challenges faced by universities to place students in the industry?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I often witness a lot of university bashing in many industry events. I hear universities stay too much in their ivory tower. I hear about the gap between supply and demand. And I'm sorry, but I think this is unfair towards universities. Let me say why. At UTM, even when we propose a new program or a program review, we need to have the input of the industry to justify the need for the program and to vet the contents of the program. This forms part of our formal processes. Moreover, in many university instances, such as our school board, we try to have multiple representatives from the industry. We're lucky to have you, Preeti, on our school board. And when I look at other universities, their partnerships and the vibrant activities they have on campus, you see that Mauritian universities have a close relationship with business stakeholders. And I'm sure this can improve them. Some have suggested University Industry Committee, which meets regularly to work on common issues. Currently, our meetings with the industry are more sectorial and are driven by different people in the university. However, I want to avoid a complex structure, which is there for a show-off only. I have witnessed several partnerships like that, where we sign a nice memorandum of understanding, we call the media, and then it's wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. They are not there when you need them, they do not respond to mails. In a nutshell, there is no commitment whatsoever. I think we need to have a flexible relationship where because everybody's needs are not the same. We all have different priorities. However, if we meet regularly, if we're honest and committed, I'm sure we can cover a lot of common ground and meet at least halfway. To sum up, I would say that yes, there is a working relationship with universities. It probably is not ideal, but I think we need to keep it going and keep on working on the relationship because that's what works for relationships, continuous commitment.
That's helpful context, Ravi. And I note that there might be a lot of opportunities there to enhance further this relationship between the industry and the academia. And so, Rehan, I'm going to now kick it over to you to dive a little bit more about your experience as a young graduate trying to get your first job.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Rehan.
Yes, so hello everybody. First of all, I would like to begin by saying that I joined SDWorks last year itself, which is approximately 10 to 11 months. So I did my internship at SDWorks in 2019 and found that SDWorks is kind of like a good working environment. So after my graduation, I rejoined back SDWorks as a new software engineer. where here I'm getting to learn lots of new things, which will eventually help me in my career for the future years. And I am kind of now experiencing new things, which I'm getting to grow and also learning. Yeah, I think that's some of it for now.
Okay, that's great. And Rehan, if there was a technology, concept, or framework that you would have preferred to learn before you get your first job, what would it be and why? Rehan? Or anyone who want to pick up
Yes, I can.
this
I
question?
can. Yeah, I can pick that up. Hello everyone. My name is Puvanen Sinan, and I have joined SD Works in September last year as well in the IT graduate programs. And for the question, for me, I would have loved to learn more about Angular framework before I get my first job. Angular is a TypeScript-based free and open source web application framework that is used by developers for building web, desktop, and mobile applications. Why Angular though? I personally find Angular fascinating. It supports SPS, single page applications, two-way binding data, reduced coding. I mean, who does not like to write short but effective codes, right? Also, ease of integration, and it is also cross-platform, and there are other benefits as well. Also, some of the popular websites developed using Angular, for example, are The Guardian, the British daily newspapers, PayPal, Netflix, and more. There's also a huge demand for Angular in the market nowadays, so that's why I would have loved to learn Angular for me.
That's great, Pavanan. Ravi, coming back to this technology choice, is there do you see a difference or a gap between the technology choice that university are using today to groom our graduates and the technology that the industry is requiring in this current, Angular, or the war between Angular and Vue.js and React? What is the stand of technology of universities in the technology choice?
Thank you for this question, Preeti. I think at the university we are more technology neutral. There's no question of choosing one framework over the other, whether it's Microsoft versus open source, or as you're saying, I've heard the comment about Angular and so on, and I think we've taken this into consideration in the program reviews which we've had recently. However, at the university we start from scratch. I think I need to remind you that those who come for further studies in IT don't necessarily have a background in IT. It's not a requirement. So we have to start from scratch. We need to do the basics, and this takes time. And what happens is that with technology and frameworks, we've seen that every time we do a review, we need to keep adding new things. We've added recently artificial intelligence. We've added blockchain, because the demands in terms of technology keep on increasing. And unfortunately, this goes to the detriment of soft skills. And that this is also a requirement, unfortunately, from the industry, because software engineers, IT professionals don't work in isolation. They need to work in teams. They need to be able to communicate with customers. They need to be able to interact, understand the requirements before coming up with a solution. So this balancing between these soft skills and the new technology demands is quite difficult, definitely.
That's great. Thank you, Ravi, to shed light on how universities today, when they are designing the programs, they are quite technology neutral. So would that be something in the graduates or the students' to-do list for example, before choosing a specific technology to do their final year project or to do, to prepare themselves for the market, would that be an interesting option for them to, do some market research to see what other technologies out there and how the universities are helping those students to frame these requirements, even if, you say that it is neutral today in the choice of the curriculum building?
Definitely. What happens is that we choose certain platforms definitely within the different modules of the program. But I think there's one thing which anyone who embarks on higher studies in IT needs to realize today. Learning doesn't occur only at the university. Learning occurs on your own. When you go and you need to have personal projects. You need to work, you need to participate in competitions. And learning occurs in all these places. So at university, we do the basics. We do encourage the students to participate in as many competitions. We've had several teams lined up for example, Web Cup, Hackathon. I need to just say thank you to the student bodies at the University of Mauritius who've called on our students as well to participate in many activities, in competitions which they organize. And I think this has helped the students to grow a lot. Now, concerning the final year project, what happens is that we do a briefing at the beginning of the year, and we also help them in the choice of titles. But then again, we leave the choice of the platforms to themselves. It depends on their personal preference. Maybe they need to do a bit of market research, but they learn it anyway when they go on placement. They understand the market demands and the way things are done differently. And I think this helps in their growth, this self-discovery, as compared to just feeding them everything at the university.
All right, that's a very interesting insights here. I'm sure a lot of future graduates or college students who want to choose IT at university level are now conscious in which technology they would want to invest on, because it's also an investment that we talk in terms of time, in terms of effort. And obviously this poses an interesting situation as to how experienced IT professionals tend to accept or work with young graduates or less experienced professionals. So Salman, I'd love for you to just weigh in on your point of view. Given your current role as an experienced professional in IT and as a DevOps engineer, what are the gaps you see when you work with fresh graduates or junior?
Yeah, thanks, Pretty. So hi, everyone. Thanks for giving me this opportunity today to discuss on some very interesting topics. So quick intro. So I'm Salman Laga, so as Brittany mentioned, so I'm currently working as lead DevOps engineer at SDWorks for a bit over 3 years now. So I'm mainly involved in building and maintaining cloud applications for SDWorks and trying to find innovative ways to develop and deploy to Azure. Right, coming back to the question. So based on the different experiences that I've got with working with the fresh graduates. So first of all, I had the privilege to deliver some training to a bunch of new fresh graduates, which joined, I think it was last year, if I'm not mistaken. So I had the wonderful opportunity to introduce them to some of the different components that we have on Azure. So my experience was that now I feel that the new generations, I would say, of graduates, well, they are more confident, they are more, they communicate better, I would say, because in my time when I was, when I first joined, I was a bit, I would say a bit shy, I was a bit scared, but now I think it has changed in a way that the new graduates are more confident, and this is very, very good to see. And also some of them are very good. they already possess most of the qualities that are required for, I would say, an experienced developer. So it has been a delight to work with them, but also from by conversing with them and by working with them, I also noticed that there are some topics which were not touched in university, like for instance cloud technologies. So they just know the concept, and they haven't really they do not know how it works and all the different components attached to it. I think in terms of gaps, it's mainly, I would say, the new technologies, but definitely the basics are there, as Ravi mentioned initially. So the basics are there. They know programming, for instance. They know C#, they know SQL. So the basics are there, but it would have been, I would say, good for them if they would have at least know these new technologies, like for instance Angular or cloud or whatever new technologies that are currently being used in today's market. Because from what we can see, most of the companies and most of the projects are moving to cloud-based technologies. So on-prem is now being migrated to cloud-based technology. So definitely, I think that would be a plus for them if they would have that knowledge, I would say.
Great, Salman. Thank you. You just rattled through a succinct but perhaps daunting to-do list for students or graduates to consider, because it's technology is ever-changing, constantly moving towards more complex or sometimes more simpler, versions. We talk about cloud, we talk about Microsoft Azure, we talk about Amazon Web Services. How would you see students, for example, benefits prior coming to the market? Students benefiting from these technologies. Do we have, like, free platforms? I know Microsoft has student platforms where students can create accounts and learn at their pace. So what would you suggest to students or graduates to do to get this knowledge prior getting into the market?
Yeah. So yeah, as you said, for instance, for Microsoft, so Azure, so everything is well documented on the net. It's the documentations are publicly available. Everything, you will get everything from basic documentations to advanced documentations, and also you can. Microsoft allows you to create like student accounts where you can like experience on Azure. So it will give you like some Azure credits on that account, which you can use to practice and explore all the different possibilities that you have on Azure. So yeah, I would say that the resources are available online, and yeah, they can try to create their account and try to play with it initially, then try to build up and create more, I would say, complex things on Azure, and try to see how everything interacts together, and yeah, build up their knowledge about the product, and that would definitely be an advantage, I would say, for them. And I'm not too familiar with AWS, but I think they also have a similar kind of program which helps new learners, I would say, with regards to cloud technologies. But yeah, it is available on the net, so it's just a matter of searching and just creating your student account and just practice. Yeah.
Awesome, Salman. This is a great advice to aspiring IT professionals. Is it about, like Ravi said, depending heavily on what you only learn at universities, but also going out there, be a go-getter, and be always hungry for knowledge, and to learn about new things, and not, dwell on whatever you get, at academia level. It's also interesting to add to this that on top of universities, on top of online platforms, we have a lot of communities in Mauritius who help young or older generations actually to get acquainted with each other, not only personally, but also in terms of technologies or passion that they share across or around a certain technology. And .NET User Group Mauritius is one of them, right? So if you are one of those people who are aspiring IT professional and want to learn a lot about cloud, .NET, Amazon Web Service, Java, do connect with those communities, and they are going to help you, go where you want to go. Taking a step back, because we said, okay, graduates do have challenges and we do experience certain gaps when they enter the market. I firmly believe that our graduates do anticipate those challenges and they try to figure out ways to work it out, actually. So I would like to shoot this to Puvanen. What's the biggest challenge you have with your specific role right now? And what are you doing to overcome it?
Yes, I will leave this question to my colleague Rehan to pick this one up.
Great.
Thanks, Puvanen. Sorry, got a connection issue earlier. So the main challenge was developing the confidence that is needed for work. I think the confidence comes with experience. There are certain crossroads that happens when you work on anything. For example, as a developer, choosing different patterns of implementation. So choosing which one is the best way. Now there is a confidence that comes when you have been doing that for years. It's easy to choose the best possible path because you've been in this situation before. Developing this confidence means experiencing many situations and their outcome. As a young developer, there is a lot that I have not been able to experience at this moment. But to overcome this, the solution that I found is using the curiosity and ingenuity to read and upskill myself. I sometimes also talk to my more experienced peers, where some of them are Salman and Danish themselves, that provide their own take on specific situations. I think growing and learning is part of the process of becoming the best I can.
That's great, Rehan. It's important that you are conscious that you need to upskill yourself to be able, to overcome the challenge. And you gave a few examples, but it would be great for our audience to know, for example, how Rehan upskills himself. Is there any platform you use in terms of, I don't know, online platforms or things that you subscribe to, or, bloggers that you are a fan of, or, books that you like to read? So are there any indicators that you could give us on how do you upskill yourself?
First of all, like everybody knows, Stack Overflow is our main friend. But like for usually, if I work on Azure and sometimes I get difficulties for example, logic apps, I usually check the official sites for Microsoft itself, or it can be the .NET ones. And also some, I would say like, I think that's it. And also for Angular, there is plural site where you can eventually learn and do some online tests to see if you're grasping the new things and learning about them correctly. Yeah, I think that's it.
Great. Anyone else would want to share, probably in the panel today, how, for example, do any one of you upskill yourself in anything, maybe hard skills, or why not soft skills as well?
Yeah, I'd like to add YouTube. Now you have all types of tutorials on YouTube. In our days, when we were learning, well, there were tutorials on YouTube, but it was not like the complete list. But now, if you go on YouTube, you type any topics you want, be it .NET, be it cloud, be it Angular, be it AWS. So you have all types of tutorials, all types of help that you can look for. So YouTube also, I think it's a good place to search for search, well, to ramp up on a specific topic. So yeah.
Thanks, Salman. Ravi, probably one for you, because you also emphasized on it in the beginning of the of this discussion. Like, you know, IT professionals, developers, engineers, they really tend to you know, be a bit working in isolation, not communicating a lot. But nowadays the scene has changed. They need to work on teams, and they need to, you know, express themselves. They need to communicate. So is there any platforms you would suggest for our audience here to learn about anything regarding soft skills? How the university is promoting soft skills learning for in terms of platform, or in terms of, you know, online websites where they get this knowledge?
Okay, soft skills are all really important, and we are conscious of that. We've had this comment several times that freshers lack soft skills. Sometimes they are shy. Sometimes they can't communicate in English or French properly. Some of them work in isolation. They're not good in teamwork. So we do realize that these are important. We try to put modules to beef up their language capability. We try to help them on communication. We encourage lecturers to make use of presentations as far as possible. Often I will find students in university telling me that this is the first time they presented. We also encourage teamwork within the program and also in competitions. I think this is where they develop their soft skills. However, Priti, I will acknowledge that, and it's not only I who said that, there's research which says that universities are not good in beefing up soft skills. And that is why we try to get you guys from the industry to do this job. We send them for placements. And we see really a huge growth when our students go on placements. Currently, we have a mandatory placement within our programs. And, you know, for the students, it's often the first time that they are going to work. So they are able to understand the discipline of the workplace discipline, solving problems more autonomously, managing their time by themselves. So I think it's really this which helps them. On our side, we also encourage them to build up their communication skills. For example, with clubs like Toastmasters or even many other activities which they participate in. We don't yet have a Toastmasters club at the university, but we are working towards it to help the students build not only their communication skills, but also their leadership skills. On this note, I would also like to thank many of the IT players, you know, like you mentioned, Microsoft. We also have got a lot of help from IBM. You mentioned also AWS, got also Cisco. Recently, we signed an agreement with Huawei. So many of these big companies, they're here not only providing their tools freely, but they're also providing learning programs for students. Microsoft even has got a Microsoft Student Ambassador program. We don't have many students yet on this one, but I met students from the University of Mauritius who are Microsoft Student Ambassadors, and I can tell you that when I met them in one of the conferences and they were demonstrating a technology, I thought they were not professional. In fact, they were a second-year student. So I think these sort of programs help a lot as well in beefing up the communication skills and the other soft skills of students.
Thanks, Ravi. That's also very great insights on how our young generation can come out of their of their comfort zone and try to enhance communication skills, which is really, and I attest this very strongly, extremely important, because our players are not local players, they are also international players, where communication becomes key to recruitment. And while talking about recruitment, there is an undeniable war for talent, and the industry is reviewing its whole recruitment and onboarding process for a better candidate experience. So, Rehan, how did you find the interview process from various companies, not mentioning the companies, of course, in search for your first job in this competitive market? How did you find the interview process? How did you live it? If you want to share with us, that would be great.
I think Puvanen would like to take this one, if he doesn't mind.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Rehan. So for me, I found that the first interview is always a challenge, right? You get nervous, your hands start shaking while in the waiting room. You have no idea whatsoever what to expect, but you just know you have to be confident and positive throughout the interview. But then after the first interview is done, I find that incoming interviews go a lot smoother because you learn and gain experience from the previous ones. Whatever mistakes you may have done in the first one or in the previous interviews, you make 100% sure that it won't happen again and you improve yourself. So for me, suffice to say that interviews really helped me to boost my morale and grow professionally. It was a great experience for me.
All right. And what about you, Rehan? Anything you would want to add about your interview processes? How did you experience it?
Yes. So I would like to first of all say for my interview processes, there were not many, but few of them, where some interview went well and some not. The main thing that I was lacking in the interviews is my communication skills, which I am currently working on, because I think communication is not only used for interviews, but in the working environment as well.
Yes, that's key, as we see, and that we saw it also in our various discussion. Salman, I know that it goes back years, but would you like to share any insights with our audience today about how did you live your first interview or your interviews, actually?
Yeah, I can vividly remember my first interview, actually. So as Puvanen said earlier, so it was the same feeling for me. So first ever interview in your life. So I was very nervous. I was very well. I didn't know what to expect because well, I did some preparation beforehand. So I did some Google search, for instance, types of interview questions you get. So I did some research, but when it was the time to give the interview, you forget everything. So due to the nervousness, but yeah, it it was nerve-wracking, but as I went through the interview, well, the interviewer was a very friendly person, which he made me comfortable in the interview. And then as we went along with the interview, so I got more comfortable, and I was able to like express myself in a better way, I would say, and I was able to convey my ideas, I would say, in a more better way. But yeah, it was a nerve-wracking experience when I started, but as I went through like other interviews in other companies, so it went better in a sense that now I was more experienced, I was more confident, I was more I knew what I was what was expected from me, of course. And yeah, as it went along, I gained more confidence, and yeah, it went better, I would say.
Preeti, may I add some feedback on the recruitment process, especially
Of course, Ravi.
from
Go
the
ahead.
feedback I get from students. One thing which they are not prepared for are the tests, because I think anyone who is going to look for a job needs to be prepared for this, is that the companies no longer look at grades nowadays, they run their own tests. So you have a series of aptitude tests where the students need to show their logic capacity. You have then technical tests, and some of these technical tests are very hard. I would say to some students, do not be discouraged if you find some of the tests very hard. It just means sometimes that you're not ready for that job. I've seen some companies looking for near professional competencies from freshers, and sometimes that's a lot to expect. So of course, then they won't get that job. Then for the interviews, you've got general interviews, and I think here anyone who is going to embark on a career needs to at least think about the career, where they see themselves. I think many students don't realize the large variety of possibilities which exist in the IT industry. We just think about either going to be a system engineer or software developer and forget about the other varieties. So I think they need to start to know more about the different varieties of careers which exist and think about what they would like to do. Because I think this issue of liking what you do is very important. And then, of course, one last thing is not to ace the interview too much. I met a recruiter recently who said, this guy, he was so good at the interview, but then when he came for the job, that was a completely different person. So what he did was that he aced the interview. He prepared himself more, and he oversold himself. So I think you should not oversell yourself. You should think about your career, what you want to do, and then you need to let the matching go naturally. If you don't get a job, it means that the job is not meant for you, and you need to prepare yourself and look for something else which matches your abilities.
Fantastic advice, Ravi. I think me being, I've been in both sides of the table a lot of times, to be honest. And one thing that I always say to engineers or, candidates is, be yourself. Be yourself, be true, be who you are. So acing something is a great feeling. Acing an interview is a great feeling. But you've set the benchmark, you've set the standard, and this is what they will look at when you are really, really working. So yeah, you are completely right there. So moving ahead to, we've been going, all of us, the whole world actually, we've been going through the famous COVID-19 pandemic, and we are all conscious that this pandemic has completely disrupted how people work or act even or learn. It has put innovation at the center of everything, and the education system was not spared. From primary to tertiary institutions, the education system had to be reinvented so that students can still follow their academic path. So what has changed, Ravi, in the way of teaching at UTM? What kind of innovation did UTM bring forward? And what are the plans for the coming years and for the future generations?
Thank you, Preeti, for this very relevant question. Well, one thing I would say that even before COVID-19, there has been a lot of questioning on the relevance of higher education institutions in general. In the US, students are crumbling with over $1 trillion of student debt. In Mauritius, we're fortunate that higher studies in public institutions are almost entirely financed by the government. Nevertheless, the question of the relevance of universities should always be asked, because this is what keeps universities on their toes. Many students learn more from the Indian tutor on YouTube or Stack Overflow, as one of the panelists mentioned, than in class. Many companies do their own tests and interviews instead of looking at university grades. So why bother to go to university at all? Well, personally, I think that the 3 years spent at the university are more about growing up, finding your bearings, and thinking about your career. Learning at the university is not just the content delivered by lecturers. It's also through exchanges which occur on campus, over coffee, a farata, or boiled noodles, between the students themselves and the lecturers, of course. So yes, I think that universities are still relevant, but of course there is a price beyond which the benefits are not worth it. Coming back to COVID-19, now I'll admit that we were more prepared during the second lockdown as compared to the first one. At UTM, we have spent this semester fully online and did not have any face-to-face sessions. Lectures have been delivered with tools such as Google Meet and Zoom mostly. Learning management systems such as Google Classroom, Edmodo, and even Moodle have become the norm. What I especially appreciated with my university's management is that although there was a central recommendation for the way lectures should be delivered, there was a certain flexibility which allowed individual lecturers to explore different innovations. Of course, I would be lying if I said everything is fine. Although we have felt safe with the online lectures, interaction is still a nightmare. I have just spent one whole semester teaching ghost students. Here I can almost recognize the students from Kavir, Favish to Salman, but this semester I barely know the names of the students I taught. It is painful, and frankly speaking, we have to step up. At UTM, we have set up a blended unit since last year, which has organized different working groups with different stakeholders to craft the way forward. Sharing and assessing practical skills in various fields, such as engineering, medicine, is a challenge that we need to overcome. Delivering hybrid classes, which can be followed simultaneously online and on campus, for better inclusion of all students, is something we would like to be able to do soon. Overall, I would say that COVID-19 has accelerated the digital transformation of education, and this is a good thing. It has also enabled us to revamp ourselves to still be relevant in the 21st century.
Fantastic, Ravi. I think most of the universities have done a great job during the lockdown since last year to make sure that their students are not penalized and they are still, being able to complete their academic year with their exams. And one of the things that come to my mind, we know that there is that students are lagging behind in terms of schedule, rather, for the exams. Is there anything that is, being done by the management of the university so that, students can sit properly for the exams and be graduated so that, they can enter the market this year? What is the plan for them?
Well, currently this semester we haven't had exams. Except for a couple of courses which have had online exams because of accreditation issues. For the other universities, we have privileged coursework, 100% coursework, with assessments being done. Some of the assessments were done online, but mostly they were take-home assessments. This was especially because we had the lockdown, and this decision was taken to accommodate the diverse population of the university. But we're working on how we can include more online assessments, especially with respect to practical skills. because it is difficult to assess practical skills just over take-home assessments. But at the same time, I'm sure you will acknowledge that students learning from home have had difficulties with their internet connection. I myself have had to upgrade my home connection, but even then, doing, for example, online tests are difficult. But we're trying to see how we can provide a more inclusive, but at the same time practical means of assessment for the students next semester. But I think apart from the assessment, because there's a lot of focus on assessment, whether we're going to have exams or not, but I think this is not the most important issue. The thing we need to work on is to improve interaction. Because it's not just giving lectures on Zoom. I think that's just the first step, being able to deliver your lectures, deliver your content. I think with online, we need to review completely the way we are going to deliver our lectures, and especially try to explore how we're going to enable students to interact more effectively online, because we don't know how long we're going to stay in this mode. But I think that even if the pandemic goes away, there's a component of online. There are some benefits of working online which we'll still need to conserve and improve upon.
Absolutely, and this is what we are today in the world of work calling the hybrid way of working, which means that will definitely be a hybrid, culture where working from anywhere is possible, but probably in the future learning from anywhere is also possible, isn't it?
Definitely.
Technology has taken a great stance. The market is in dire need of IT skill sets, and universities are building our future capabilities. However, with the ever-changing landscape from cloud to robotics and automation and whatnot, Salman, how important do you think professional certifications are? We hear a lot of professional certifications, and we talked about it a bit earlier, like, Microsoft certifications. There are hundreds of them. Azure certifications, Cisco, Rabi mentioned earlier, ISTQB for quality assurance engineers. So how important do you think these are in the career path of an IT professional at any point in time in their career?
Yeah. Well, the short answer for this one, according to me, is that the working experience on that particular technology is more fundamental than the actual certification, right? What I mean by that is like for instance, I just did an Azure certification, the Azure 204, Azure Developer Associate. So when I was preparing for this certification, from what I noticed, everything was based on reading documentation. So there was not much of practical activity, practical exercises, I would say. So it's just about learning the theory and then going for the exam. But I feel that the hands-on experience is far more valuable, in a sense that you need. Well, it's good to know the basic documentation of what everything is we have, but I think more important is to have the actual hands-on. And with regard to certifications, yes, there are lots of certifications that you can do. For instance, on Microsoft, you have lots with regards to cloud, developer, BI. You have lots of certifications, but you need to know in which direction you want to go in your career before even deciding about certifications. For instance, let's say if you want to do like cloud development. For cloud development, you have specific certifications which you can take on, right? But before even thinking about certifications, I think the candidate should have a clear picture on what he needs to do and what are his career aspirations. Because as I said, and as everyone on the panel said, technology is very vast. You need to know where you want to go before thinking about certifications. But yeah, the short answer again is like hands-on experience is more valuable than the actual certification. But certifications are good to give you like the basics on how everything is working. And of course, yeah, there are some more advanced certifications, but again, it's good to have the certifications, but hands-on is more important. Yeah, that's my take on this one.
Kitty, may I add something on this one, on certifications?
Yes, please, Ravi.
I know to the comments of Salman because he's a seasoned professional and I take them very seriously. For freshers, though, the feedback I've heard is that, well, certifications, we all know that they are proof that you have the skills. And I think for freshers, and I'm here, I'm talking to all those who are currently doing university studies and so on. I think it's good to have one certification, irrespective of what direction you're going to take. And I think the one which is very common currently is the Cisco Certificate Network Associate, CCNA. Why certifications are important? Because it sends the signal to the employer that, beside my degree, I've done something else. I've gone and studied for something by myself and I've passed it and I have the skills. So apart from just the skills, they also show some independent learning. Now I've mentioned CCNA because it's something which is very common, is appreciated by many employers. The University of Mauritius runs a course on that at a very affordable rate as well. But I think there are many other certifications which could do the job as well. But I think for freshers, it's good to have one. Of course, you will need to bear in mind that certifications are often time-bound, that is, they expire, and they also cost a lot of money. So, of course, you need to be mindful of that. Don't invest too much money in it, don't spend too much time, because you just want to send a signal in that direction. After you go into your job, then you will see what are the priorities. And I think many of my students have the support of employers whenever they need a specific certification. That's my take on certification.
Thanks, Ravi, for those insights. I think Salman and you are both right. It is, for some, let's say, employers, it is a nice to have, so they focus more on hands-on and they focus more on what an individual can deliver when it comes to, peculiar technology. But therefore, there is also the fact that when you have certifications, you are showing to employers that, hey, I am a go-getter. I went out there and I learned by myself, and this is a skill that I have and that you can bet on. So that's also, it shows very positive signals when you have certifications. But I would also like to add on top of that is, when we have very big companies, I will not cite the names, of course, but there are big companies who recruit massively on a yearly basis. And to go fast in the recruitment process, they do have a certain amount of tools that go through CVs, So it's not about someone going through CVs and making, the choices of who they want to meet, but they do have platforms where the CVs are run, and it's like how Google search works. They look at some keywords or some certifications, and they pick up those kind of CVs. So it's really vast about the options of, okay, do I need to go for one or do I not need to go for one? Maybe one advice we could give to students or graduates is that if you can invest time, efforts And of course, money, because as Ravi said, it does cost some money. So if you have these criteria ticked, then yes, please go ahead and do it. But if not, then yeah, learning is key, and getting the knowledge is key as well. So we are going to wrap today with a light-hearted closer, right? I know you guys have done a great job at articulating some examples of what you've experienced. And what I would love for Puvanan and probably all of you to cite really quickly, what would be your top advice to other graduates who will join soon the IT industry?
Yes.
Your top one.
Yes, for me would be self-learning. Self-learning is really important. So whenever you finish a task and you have some free time left, take that opportunity and improve yourself to gain more and more knowledge in order to grow in your career. That's a really big important thing for me.
Excellent, Puvanan. Anything you want to add to that, Rehan?
Yes, pretty of course. I would like to advise them that they should choose their career path well. What I mean is that, for example, if they want to become developers, they should not get carried out by people saying that, for example, testing is easier, which I would like to say it is not always the case. I also like to tell them that they should not be scared to take on new challenges. And like Puvanen said, they should never stop learning. Uh, they should always be passionate about what they are doing and give their 110%, I will say, even in the smallest task. That's a bit of what I would like to say.
Excellent, Rehan. Anything you want to add, Salman?
Yes, of course. So first piece of advice I would say is like to be prepared, but also to be yourself. By that I mean, when, for instance, you have an interview. Well, of course, you need to prepare for that interview, but of course, you need to be yourself. Show your personality. Show what kind of person you are to the interviewer, so that they can get a better grasp of you in terms of your personality and how you are as a person. I think that's very important. And also you need to show like the willingness to learn new things and the willingness to take on new challenges and responsibility. So yeah, I think these 2 points I think would be good if a new graduate wants to like improve on himself. Or yeah.
Excellent, Salman. One last word from you, Ravi. What advice would
Yes.
you give?
I was very interested to hear what the youngsters have said and the seasoned professional. I've been in this field for 28 years, and I think what keeps me going still is the passion which you have. It's hard. I think I need to tell that to everyone. It's hard. As you grow older, it's even harder. For example, I've been teaching project management for the last more than 10 years, and I'm still studying for a certificate given by Google currently, and it's hard, but if you enjoy what you do, it's not work. You're just living your passion, and I think this is what everyone needs to do when choosing a career. You can't map it out. You can't map a whole life. You of course plan, but you need to be flexible. You need to listen to your heart rather than look at market demand and things like that. Listen to your heart and do what you enjoy best.
Thank you, Ravi. Maybe one advice from myself, and I would like to quote Mahatma Gandhi here. It goes like this: live like you're going to die tomorrow, and learn like you're going to live forever. So, my top advice to you students, graduates, or anyone, any professional, seasoned or juniors, always learn, learn, and learn. You will only grow by it, right? Well, I think we are at time. Thank you guys so much. Rehan, Poovanan, Salman, and Ravi, and not forgetting everyone who is behind the scene today, Favish, Satish, Danish. So thank you everyone for your time today. This was a really, really great discussion. I appreciate you all hopping on. Thanks for tuning into NUGM. And be sure to be part of our network so you don't miss a beat on our upcoming events this year. Cheers. Goodbye.
Bye.